Ever wish you had like a brilliant scholar,
Yeah.
as your best friend, someone to unlock those secrets of knowledge, especially religious knowledge?
Hmm.
Well, in the world of Hamid al-Kirmani, he's a fascinating figure from the Islamic Golden Age. That's the role of the Imam.
Wow.
Today we're going a deep dive into al-Kirmani's life,
Okay.
his work, and why he still matters, even
That's
centuries later.
I'm excited.
Gave us some really great sources on him, mainly excerpts from this book about his life and times, focusing on his masterpiece,
Right.
Rahāt al Aql, which means,
The piece of the intellect.
yes, the peace of the intellect.
Yeah.
What a great title. It really sets the stage for how al-Kirmani approached faith and knowledge, don't you think?
It really does. I mean, it just draws you in, You want to learn more.
Exactly right. It makes you want to dive right in.
Yeah.
But before we do, let's set the stage a bit.
Okay.
Al-Kirmani, he flourished in Cairo. During the Fatimid Caliphate, 10th to 12th century CE, Cairo was like this buzzing center of intellectual and religious exchange.
Oh, yeah.
And the Fatimids, well, they had a different view of Islamic leadership than, say, the Sunni Babids.
They did. That's a key difference to keep in mind. The Abbasids, who ruled from Baghdad, they were Sunni, while the Fatimids traced their lineage back to Fatima, the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, and her husband, Ali.
Oh, okay.
They believed that they were the rightful imams, divinely appointed.
So right from the start, there's this clash about who holds the religious authority.
Exactly. And this had huge implications. It shaped both politics and religion. And al-Kirmani was right in the middle of it all, defending the Fatimid Ismaili doctrine against all sorts of challengers, the Sunni, the Mutazilites. They were all about reason, and even other Ismaili groups like the Druze.
So many different groups all vying for influence. It sounds like navigating the religious landscape back then was pretty tricky.
Oh, it was. It was a time of intense debate and just intellectual ferment with all these different schools of thought trying to make sense of faith and reason. Al-Kirmani was a master at weaving together these various threads, while carving out this distinct Ismaili perspective.
So let's talk about al-Kirmani himself.
Oh.
Where'd this intellectual powerhouse come from?
Well, we don't know all the details of his early life, but we know he was born in Persia,
Okay.
probably in the late 10th century. And his name, al-Kirmani, hints that he might have been from the city of Kirman, known for its scholarly traditions.
So probably surrounded by books and learning from a young age.
Most likely. I mean, his writing definitely shows a deep understanding of, Greek philosophers like Aristotle, Plato,
Right.
Islamic theologians, and of course, Ismaili thought.
But he wasn't just like, repeating what others had said.
No, not at all. He had his own mission to defend orthodox Fatimid Ismaili doctrine against those who held, different, sometimes even extreme views. Imagine being a scholar in those days and having to defend your beliefs against such a diverse array of thinkers.
It was just like a bubbling pot of all these ideas.
Exactly. It highlights the just intellectual dynamism of that era.
So he wasn't just a scholar. He was like an intellectual warrior, defending his faith.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And his work wasn't just some abstract, intellectual exercise. It had real-world consequences. It influenced how people understood their faith and the very legitimacy of Fatimid rule.
Wow. Okay, so let's get to his masterpiece, Rahāt al Aql. What were the big questions that he was grappling with in this book?
Well, he was tackling some of the most profound questions humanity has ever asked, questions about existence, the nature of the intellect, what happens to the soul. Think of it like a map of the universe, but seen through this Ismaili lens.
So what's the key takeaway here? What makes al-Kirmani's approach unique?
Okay, so unlike some thinkers who believed that reason alone could lead us to truth, al-Kirmani insisted that human reason needs divine guidance. And that's where the Imam comes in.
The Imam. Now, you mentioned before that the Fatimids had this particular view of the Imam. So how did al-Kirmani see the role of the Imam?
For al-Kirmani, the Imam wasn't just a political leader. He was the living embodiment of divine wisdom, a direct link between God and humanity. He envisioned this hierarchy of knowledge. Okay, so you have God at the source, then the first intellect, followed by the universal soul, then the Imams, and finally us.
Okay.
Each level plays a crucial role in this grand scheme of existence.
So it's like this chain of command with knowledge flowing down from God through the Imams to us.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And the Imam is that, that vital link guiding us towards understanding, enlightenment. It's quite different from other Islamic schools of thought on leadership.
It is. For example, I remember reading about how he challenged the Twelver Shiites,
Oh, right.
who believed in a hidden imam, one who had gone into occultation,
Yes, yes.
basically a state of hiding, waiting to return at the end of time.
Right. Al-Kirmani argued against that whole idea. He believed that a living imam, was essential, someone to guide the community, interpret scripture, reveal the hidden truths of faith. He even compared the imam to the human heart, saying that just like a body needs a heart to function, the community needs the imam.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
But how did al-Kirmani think we access this divine knowledge that the imam holds? Did everyone get the full download, so to speak?
That's where things get really interesting. This is where his concept of tawil comes in.
Tawil.
Yes, tawil. It's the Ismaili art of esoteric interpretation, of finding that hidden meaning behind the surface level of things. Think of it like this. Have you ever felt like there's more to a story than meets the eye? That's the essence of tawil. Al-Kirmani believed that scriptures have layers of meaning. Okay, so an outer literal meaning called zahir,
Okay.
and an inner hidden meaning called batin.
So it's like an iceberg. You only see the tip, but there's this whole vast mass of meaning beneath the surface.
Exactly. And guess who holds the key to understanding that submerged truth?
Let me guess. The imam.
You got it, the imam. He helps unlock those hidden meanings, guiding us towards a deeper understanding of faith.
That's so fascinating. So for al-Kirmani, just reading the Quran wasn't enough. You needed the imam to reveal its true hidden significance. It makes you think, how much are we missing if we only focus on the surface level of things? It's like having a treasure map, but you need someone to help you decipher those clues.
That's a great analogy. Al-Kirmani was all about revealing those clues, those deeper layers of meaning through the guidance of the imam. But hold on, we've only scratched the surface of al-Kirmani's thought. He wasn't just focused on spiritual matters. He also had some interesting ideas about the universe itself. We'll delve into his cosmology next.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. I'm ready to hear more about al-Kirmani's universe. All right, so we've talked about al-Kirmani's context, his mission, and his emphasis on the imam as this guide to knowledge. Now I'm ready to hear about his cosmology.
Okay.
What did he think the universe looked like?
Well, his ideas about the cosmos were this fascinating blend of Neoplatonism, Islamic theology, and just the scientific knowledge of his time.
Right.
He imagined the universe as a series of layered heavens,
Okay.
each one reflecting a different level of spiritual existence.
So like climbing a spiritual ladder, each rung getting you closer to the divine.
Yes, exactly. And Earth, well, that was the starting point.
Yeah.
The lower realm where we begin our journey towards higher knowledge and ultimately reunion with the divine.
And who's at the top of that ladder guiding us upward? I bet you've guessed.
You got it, the Imam. Remember, for al-Kirmani, the Imam wasn't just a religious figurehead. He was the living embodiment of divine wisdom, the key to unlocking those secrets of the universe.
It's clear how central the imam was to his entire worldview.
Absolutely.
But I'm also curious about how al-Kirmani's ideas fit in with other thinkers of his time.
Right.
I mean, he was living in this incredibly vibrant period, the Islamic Golden Age, with all sorts of philosophical and theological debates going on.
Oh, yeah.
Was he just preaching to the choir, or was he engaging with those who disagreed with him?
Oh, he was definitely engaging with other schools of thought.
Okay.
And he wasn't afraid to challenge them. Remember we talked about how he disagreed with the Twelver Shiites and their idea of the hidden imam?
Yes.
He believed that a present living guide was absolutely essential.
Right. Seems like a hidden imam wouldn't be much help if you needed guidance, right?
That was his point, exactly. For al-Kirmani, divine guidance was this ongoing thing, not something that happened only at the end of time.
Yeah.
You needed an imam who was present, active, and able to lead the community.
Makes sense. But what about his interactions with other groups, like the Sunni theologians? Didn't they have some pretty different ideas about God's will and human agency?
They did. In particular, the Ash'arites, a prominent Sunni school of thought, they emphasized God's absolute power.
Okay.
And kind of downplayed human free will.
Okay.
They believed that everything that happens is ultimately determined by God's will and that we don't really have a choice in the matter.
So it sounds like they had a more fatalistic view of things.
You could say that, but for them, it was about recognizing God's ultimate authority and submitting to his will.
I see.
Al-Kirmani wasn't quite on board with that, though, was he?
He wasn't.
No. He argued that while God is all-powerful, his actions are always just like an For him, justice wasn't just some arbitrary concept.
Right.
It was a rational principle that we could understand. He also believed that we do have free will, that we're responsible for our choices, even though we're ultimately guided by divine wisdom.
So a more nuanced view of how divine will and human choice interact.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense, considering how much he emphasized the role of reason and intellect.
Right.
It wasn't just blind faith for him, right?
Exactly. For al-Kirmani, faith and reason went hand in hand. He saw divine wisdom as something that unfolds through this logical, structured order, not through arbitrary decrees. And this ties back to his cosmology, his view of the universe as this, layered hierarchy reflecting the different levels of knowledge and existence.
So he's arguing that the universe itself is a reflection of God's rational and just nature.
Precisely. And who better to guide us through this rationally ordered universe than the Imam, who embodies divine wisdom and knowledge.
Speaking of the Imam and the importance of guidance, this is making me think about al-Kirmani's concept of ta'wil.
Yes.
That esoteric interpretation we talked about before. It seems like ta'wil would be pretty crucial for someone like al-Kirmani who's so focused on uncovering those hidden meanings and deeper truths.
You're absolutely right. Ta'wil was essential to al-Kirmani's whole approach to knowledge and faith. Remember how we were talking about scriptures having those layers of meaning?
Yeah.
He was a master at peeling back those layers.
Okay.
Revealing the batan, the hidden truths beneath the surface of the zahir, the literal meaning.
So for someone like al-Kirmani, just reading the Quran on a literal level wouldn't be enough. You'd need someone to help you unlock those deeper layers of meaning.
Exactly. And who better to guide you on that journey of interpretation than the Imam? Think of it like this. Imagine reading a complex poem or a piece of philosophical writing. You might grasp the basic meaning, but you could miss out on all sorts of nuances and deeper insights without someone to guide you.
Right.
That's what the Imam does with scripture, according to al-Kirmani.
This is making me think about how we approach texts and information today.
Mm-hmm.
We're bombarded with so much information all the time, but do we always take the time to look beyond the surface?
That's a good question.
To seek out those deeper layers of meaning? Maybe we could all use a bit of al-Kirmani's approach.
I think that's a really insightful point. Al-Kirmani reminds us that true knowledge isn't just about gathering facts. It's about seeking understanding. It's about engaging with texts and ideas on multiple levels. He wasn't afraid to wrestle with complex ideas and to seek guidance from those he considered authorities on the subject.
This is all so fascinating, but we've been talking a lot about the Imam's role in guiding us towards knowledge. I'm also curious about how al-Kirmani himself went about seeking knowledge.
Right.
What were his intellectual influences, and who were some of the thinkers he engaged with?
Well, as we mentioned before, he was deeply familiar with Greek philosophy, particularly the works of Aristotle and Plato. He also drew heavily on Islamic theological traditions, engaging with thinkers like al-Farabi and Avicenna.
Ah, yes, al-Farabi and Avicenna. Those were some big names in Islamic philosophy. Weren't they both influenced by Greek philosophy as well?
They were. Al-Farabi, who lived in the 10th century, he believed that reason could lead us to truth independently.
Okay.
And that while prophets were, helpful, they weren't strictly necessary for philosophical knowledge. Avicenna, who came after al-Farabi, he saw intellect and revelation as complementary, with prophets playing a crucial role in guiding the masses.
So both of them emphasized the power of human reason, but they had slightly different views on the role of revelation and prophetic guidance.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is where al-Kirmani differed from them.
Okay.
While he also valued reason, he believed that it needed to be guided by divine revelation, which was accessed through the Imam. Remember, for al-Kirmani, the Imam was that ultimate source of knowledge, the bridge between the divine and the human.
So he was building on their ideas, but taking them in this distinctly Ismaili direction.
Yes.
It sounds like he was really grappling with some fundamental questions about the nature of knowledge, the role of authority, and how we can access truth.
Absolutely. And his answers to those questions were shaped by his own context, by the intellectual currents of his time, and by his deep commitment to Ismaili thought.
This is all so rich and thought-provoking, but before we get too deep into those broader questions, I'm eager to hear more about how al-Kirmani actually used ta'wil to interpret scriptures. Can you give us an example of how he applied this method to to uncover those hidden meanings.
Of course. One great example is his interpretation of the Quranic story of Adam and Iblis.
Okay.
Now, on the surface, the story is pretty straightforward. God creates Adam. Iblis refuses to bow down to him,
Right.
and is cast out of paradise.
Right. The classic tale of disobedience and the fall from grace.
But al-Kirmani, he went beyond that literal reading.
Oh, yeah.
He saw the story as an allegory for the relationship between humanity and divine knowledge. For him, Adam represented the Imam,
Okay.
the one entrusted with divine wisdom, and Iblis represented those who rejected divine authority, including those who oppose the rightful Imam.
So the act of prostration becomes a symbol of submission to the Imam's guidance.
Yes.
Not just obedience to God in general.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the Imam as the source of true knowledge and guidance.
Okay.
And this is just one example.
Right.
Al-Kirmani applied ta'wil to all sorts of Quranic stories and concepts, finding, hidden meanings in numbers, symbols, even the black stone of the Kaaba.
It sounds like he was constantly searching for those deeper connections, those hidden threads running through the universe and religious teachings.
He was, and that's what makes his work so fascinating. He wasn't content with surface level understandings.
Yeah.
He wanted to get to the heart of things, to uncover the essence of knowledge and existence, and he believed that ta'wil, guided by the Imam, was the key to doing just that.
It's incredible how he was able to weave together all these different strands of thought.
Yeah.
Greek philosophy, Islamic theology, Ismaili esotericism,
Right.
into such a coherent and compelling worldview.
It really is. And it speaks to his brilliance as a thinker and his deep conviction in the power of reason guided by revelation.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about al-Kirmani's unique approach to knowledge, his concept of the Imam, his use of ta'wil, and his fascinating ideas about the cosmos. But before we wrap up, I'm curious to explore his legacy.
Right.
What happened to his ideas after he was gone? Did they just kind of fade into obscurity, or did they have a lasting impact?
That's a great question, and one that leads us into the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Al-Kirmani's ideas, they didn't simply vanish. They had a profound and lasting influence, not only on Ismaili thought, but also on the broader intellectual landscape of the Islamic world.
Okay, I'm definitely ready to hear more about that. Let's move on to the final part of our deep dive into the world of Hamid al-Din al-Kirmani. So we've explored al-Kirmani's world, his ideas about knowledge, the Imam, and ta'wil.
Right.
But, like we were saying, ideas, they don't exist in a vacuum.
No, they don't.
What happened to al-Kirmani's thinking after he was gone? Did it have staying power?
Oh, it did. It definitely did. His ideas didn't just fade away. In fact, they had a lasting impact. He played a huge role in shaping Ismaili thought, particularly in the Fatimid Caliphate. He helped solidify their doctrine, defended it against rival interpretations, and even influenced how they trained missionaries to spread their faith.
So he wasn't just a scholar, like writing in isolation.
Right.
His ideas had real influence in his community and beyond.
Absolutely. His work helped shape the intellectual and religious landscape of his time. It's also fascinating to consider how his ideas went beyond just the Ismaili community.
Okay.
Some of his concepts, especially those related to cosmology and ta'wil, even made their way into Sufi thought.
The Sufis, those mystical seekers of spiritual truth.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Some Sufi orders were drawn to al-Kirmani's ideas about, uncovering hidden meanings in religious texts.
Right.
They were also interested in his concept of experiencing the divine through intuition and direct personal knowledge.
So even though Sufis and Ismailis have their differences, they found some common ground in al-Kirmani's thinking. That says a lot about the power of his ideas to kind of bridge those different traditions.
It really does. It shows that his ideas about knowledge, spiritual guidance, and searching for deeper truths resonated with people from various backgrounds. It makes you wonder, if al-Kirmani were around today, how would he view our modern world?
That's a great question. It's hard to imagine how someone from the 11th century would react to our technology, the internet, the sheer amount of information we have access to.
Right. Think about it. Space travel, artificial intelligence, those would have seemed like magic in al-Kirmani's time.
Totally.
But even though our world is is vastly different from his. In many ways, we're still grappling with the same basic questions.
Like what?
Well, think about the big things: the search for meaning in life, the role of faith in a world increasingly dominated by science and technology, the need for guidance and wisdom in uncertain times. Those are all issues that al-Kirmani wrestled with, centuries ago.
So how do you think he'd approach these challenges? What insights could he offer us today?
I think he would urge us to remember that seeking knowledge is not just about accumulating facts or mastering technology. It's about uncovering deeper meaning, looking beyond the surface of things, using both our reason and our intuition.
Yeah.
He wouldn't settle for easy answers or superficial understanding.
He'd probably challenge us to dig deeper.
Yes.
To think critically and to seek guidance from those who have wisdom and experience, just like he emphasized the role of the Imam.
Exactly. But I think he'd also remind us that we don't have to undertake this journey alone. Just as he sought guidance from the Imams, we can find, teachers, mentors, and sources of wisdom to help us navigate these complex questions.
So what's the big takeaway here? What can we learn from Hamid al-Kirmani, this scholar from a world so different from our own?
I think he offers us this valuable perspective on what it means to be a true seeker of knowledge. He shows us the importance of intellectual rigor, of questioning assumptions and challenging easy answers.
Right.
But he also reminds us of the importance of humility, of being open to guidance and recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
He was a scholar, a philosopher, a theologian, but ultimately he was a student of life, constantly seeking deeper understanding.
Beautifully said. And his journey, his quest for knowledge and meaning continues to inspire us centuries later.
This deep dive has been a fascinating journey.
It has.
It's amazing how exploring the ideas of someone who lived so long ago can still be so relevant and thought-provoking today.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you. I think al-Kirmani's legacy reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey that continues through time.
Yeah.
Connecting us to thinkers from the past and inspiring us to keep seeking, questioning, and exploring.
Absolutely. Well, until our next deep dive, let's all keep al-Kirmani's spirit of inquiry alive.
Yeah.
Keep learning, keep seeking, and keep pushing beyond the surface to find those deeper layers of meaning.
I like that.
And who knows, maybe we'll uncover some hidden truths about ourselves along the way.